Hello and welcome. Thank you for joining me. My name is Ian Blackburn, and I host learnaboutwine.com, where we do wine classes, events, and tastings throughout Los Angeles. And we started a wine store a few years back and now do educational tastings on Zoom every Wednesday night at 7 o'clock. Get some great people together to talk about wine, whether it's a particular grape or place. So, not sure how many of you have been to Argentina before, but when we were crafting this event, we were deep in the planning stages and getting very excited about an upcoming trip to Argentina in October. And so some of the producers we're going to be tasting tonight are involved in that trip, and some still may be. We continue to work through making some amazing appointments for the group that has we fully sold the trip, and we have all these amazing activities scheduled and stuff. But there are so many wines to learn about in Argentina, and so many things to appreciate about how far they have come in so very little time. The Argentine wine industry was a bit of a fledgling industry in the early 1990s, and it wasn't exactly known for fine wine production at all. But a number of brands and producers, like Dr. Laura Catana and her family, were really instrumental in determining the future of what we now know as Argentina. And it's still being kind of defined and redefined as things and trends have moved around. And some things, whenever something has some immediate success in the wine industry, the first thing the industry does is just pulverizes it with hundreds of versions of it, and probably overproduces and crushes the niche, if you will. And Malbec from Argentina went through that flex, if you will, and the marketplace has had to learn about Argentine wines and be able to absorb all that is happening. And now we're hitting this new phase, this new moment. And so we're going to taste some really interesting and diverse things tonight. I hope you enjoy the program. And here we go. Our first producer is a dear friend of mine, and his name is Piero Incesa della Rocchetta. I don't call him that in person. I just call him Piero. And really nice man. His family started the brand Tenuta San Guido in Tuscany, and his family produces Sassicaia. There's lots of cousins, brothers, uncles, and so Piero decided to move his energies away from Tuscany and to send them to Patagonia because he loves Pinot Noir, and he was looking around the world, figuring out where was it that he was going to try to plant his efforts and his investment. And he found some really old vine material in southern Argentina, in Patagonia. And he liked what he saw. He tasted some of the wines. He knew he could improve it. He knew there was some really good possibilities there. He brought a number of experts down to the region, and he started to make the wine known as Chacra. The producer name known as Chacra. The wine that we're going to try tonight is his entry-level Pinot Noir called Barda. And we have been a supporter for the first vintage that was imported into the United States, 2018, I think, 19s, the 20s. Now we're starting to see the 2021s and 22s come along. There's a lot to appreciate here. I'm going to get into a little video that we made with Piero, and we're going to talk about Barda. Now, the video that we made with Piero was about a year ago, and it was about the 2019. Now, we have moved into the 20, and by the end of this session, and maybe by the end of this weekend, we will be through the 20 And next week we will receive the next vintage. So the supply will remain consistent. The wine quality is very high. The scores have been unbelievable. And there's also another element involved here, is that this gentleman brought a friend of his in on the project. He's not a consultant, he is an investor. And his name is Jean-Marc Rouleau, and Rouleau sells Burgundy. And so Jean-Marc comes in to Argentina. Of course, Argentina harvests right around March, April. And so, in the Northern Hemisphere, we're harvesting September, October. And so it works out well. Jean-Marc Rouleau is able to be there for harvest and visit on numerous occasions to make things happen. And this is a very dynamic estate, so I'm excited to bring it to you. And here's our presentation. Let's go with wine number 1, the Pinot Noir from Chacra called Barda. All right, now we have the great pleasure of welcoming Piero Incisa della Rocchetta, live from Bolgheri, Italy. How are you doing, Piero?
I'm great. How are you?
Awesome. You're at Sassicaia right now?
Yes, I'm in the family estate and catching almost like an Indian summer. So it's kind of amazing. Great weather.
Well, I really appreciate you making time for us. I know you're got some amazing things happening. So let's get right into it and talk about this incredible project, this beautiful brand that you've created in Patagonia, Argentina. How did you decide Patagonia was where you wanted to go?
I think that it was almost a fluke. I decided earlier on that I wanted to venture on my own and establish my own domain. I've always had a fondness for Pinot, so I did a crush in Oregon at DDO. The Drouin were very gracious to have me. And after attending the Wine Spectator in 2001 on behalf of my family vineyard, I drank a wine blind at dinner that night, which came from this valley in Rio Negro, Argentina. And we all felt that the wine was from Burgundy. In reality, when they uncovered the bottle, the wine was from Argentina. The wine per se was not incredible, but it had some very interesting characteristics that were both varietal and surprising. So being young and maybe not particularly smart, I hopped on a plane without speaking the language nor know exactly where I was going. And I landed in this valley in Rio Negro, which it's astounding because from the air, nothing gives the impression that this is a wine region for Pinot, because you're more of in a desert than anything else. And so it turns out that these families of Pinot Noir adapted itself to the microclimate. You can see it on the slide right now, and they were thriving. And we managed to, after 20 years of hard work and a very committed team, we brought it back to life. And now we feel very privileged to have this.
Yeah, the genetic material being so aged and never ever has it been anything but sustainable or organic. It's always been farmed that way, right?
It's a long conversation. I know we're pressed for time, but basically we are in a microclimate that is absolutely outstanding and astounding, in the sense that we're used in Europe in dealing with a lot of disease and pests, such as Pronospora, Philospora, Tignola, or Oidium. Once you get to this valley, the humidity hovers between, let's say, 25% to 40%. So there is no pest, there is no disease. There is no Philospora, there is no Pronospora, there is no Oidium. And so we are living in a place that is completely free of any diseases that a vineyard can catch. So, of course, the vineyards were already organic because they were semi-abandoned. And the people that farmed them did not have enough resources to treat them chemically. We have a great team that really is devoting their life to, taking care of this vineyard. So we're very privileged.
And you have some folks that would they be indigenous folks helping you in on the property?
Yeah, so Chacra is a little bit, we've been remote working since inception because when I started the vineyard, I also had to sell the wine. And I spend more or less 6 to 7 months a year in the estate. And there is a great team that is composed by Italians, but also Argentines and also some Peruvians. So it's really more than one culture, more than one nationality coming together. But it works great. We have the same goal. That's our shared interest. So we're very privileged that way.
That's beautiful. Is it a good place for people to put on their calendar to visit?
But it depends what kind of a person you are. If you are a person that is fine to spend some alone time in a very quiet place without restaurants or nightclubs or high-end hotels, yes. Chacra is beautiful, is uncontaminated. It's not just a winery, it's a farm. We don't believe in monoculture, so we do all sorts of cultivation to increase, enhance, and preserve our biodiversity. So if you're okay then being alone and read a book, maybe play some tennis and have a lot of food and drink a lot of wine, absolutely yes.
That doesn't sound too bad to me. Yeah, so again, always been and always have been organic, biodynamic, and you've had some amazing progress. So you bought the location in what, around 2002, 2003?
Yeah, we bought a location. I mean, I acquired without payment on a handshake in 2002. This was a very old gentleman, Italian gentleman from northern Italy, and I purchased the vineyard 1.5 years after the handshake. So Chacra is a little bit like a research and development winery. We dedicate a large portion of our resources and time to completely experiment. We're making wines that are free of chemicals and free of sulfur. Most of the time we don't filter the wines. So when you're making this wine in this fashion, the wine are practically naked. And therefore we have to be much more precise, much more quick. We have to be extremely clean. So we have to be precise because I don't like breadth, I don't like volatility, I don't like mouths, I don't like extreme reduction in the reds. And this takes an obsessive kind of approach to farming. Once your farming job is done, you just have to try not to mess it up in the vineyard. So there is a sort of eclat of an electricity to these wines. I always say that we like to make red wines that taste a little bit more like white wines, in the sense that I like red wines that are low in alcohol, that are fresh, they have a strong acidity or energy, however we want to describe that. And most and foremost, they're also food friendly and can be drank like glue wine. So something that truly gives you a great pleasure, as opposed to having wine that are very concentrated or extracted, or they have a high alcohol component. And I hope that we are succeeding in that. Nothing is added to our wine, is spontaneous fermentation with indigenous yeast, and then 3 weeks of maceration, and here we are.
Well, we appreciate your time here, and but it's always fascinating to connect with you. You're having some tremendous success. Comments like wine of the year, 100-point scores.
Yes.
You carry a couple of the white wines, which you have a partner, Jean-Marc Rouleau,
yes,
which is tremendous. And you're making the Pinot Noirs, and you've got a number of Pinot Noirs as well, right, Piero?
Yeah, so our range starts with Barda, which means the ridge. It's a fantastic wine, in my opinion, because the average vineyard that produces the grapes for Barda is 25 years old. As you know, most of the crew are made from vineyards that are 20 plus years old. So to have for the lack of a better word, an entry-level wine from vineyards that are so old, that is organic and biodynamic, and all vineyards are ungrafted, it's a luxury. I don't know many other people that have this genetic material. And so I think we are providing a wine that is very fresh, very clean. It's meant to be drank young, and it's got a lot of very clean fruit, and is also very floral. Then we have some single vineyard wines, of which the vineyards were planted in 1955 and in 1932. Besides the age of the vineyard, they also have different mineral composition that determine, of course, the characteristics of the wine. We treat all grapes and all wines the same way. We ferment everything the same way. We make wine with full bunches, with no chemical interventions, no tartaric acid, no added tannins, absolutely nothing. Of course, then you spoke about the whites. It's a very exciting, at the same time, humbling process for us. And a little bit of a fun fact this year, for the second time in the history of Chacra, the blend for the white wines was made by Jean-Marc, Gabriele, and myself here in Bulgaria. So a Frenchman comes to Italy, and with two Italian men, they're making the blend of a Chardonnay that is made in Patagonia. And so it's kind of like a, I don't know, like a sign of times, you know?
Beautiful. Great campaign.
Yeah.
Great energy, as you say. And I really appreciate your time. Please.
Thank you.
Thank your son for bringing energy to our Zoom.
So thank you for everyone.
Thank you for that. Thank you for that. And we all appreciate your effort. And we hope
it's a teamwork. Remember, I'm just one small part of the team. And I mean that.
You're putting together a beautiful team and a beautiful message. So we'll celebrate that. And thank you very much for your time today.
Thank you very much. I hope to see you soon.
You too, Piero. Thank you very much.
Bye.
Bye.
Have a good one. Bye.
He warned me before we started filming that he was also in charge of daddy duty that day. So his son was having his way with him. But Piero is quite an international personality. He is now distributing his wine into multiple countries, to the neighborhood of like almost every major country. Last time I talked to him, he was in Japan. We were going to try to reconnect in advance of this production, but just could not get it on the calendar. So good news is I get to visit his property in October. One of the few groups that will have ever been there, and I'll be able to report back personally after doing that. In our store, which is small, we have about 1,000 to 1,200 wines in the store at any one particular time, and I carry about 4 of his Pinot Noirs and both of his Chardonnays. And there's several wines that have made the 96 to 99 point score mark, coming from his best plots, his best barrels, his best efforts. And those are his and Jean-Marc Rouleau. And I can tell you now that we've been saying this for a while, but it's really happening. The Chardonnays, Rouleau, you can't get Rouleau Burgundies if you tried, without paying an exorbitant amount. And that's going to happen to these wines as well. This Barda is made to kind of get the brand up and running and to get the vineyard healthy and to make something that's affordable, but they make things that they put their name on, to be evaluated, to be considered like great Burgundy. Because when you have Jean-Marc and you have Piero involved, they're going to be criticized. They're going to be looked at for what kind of greatness can you create. So they have those products, but they also want to create something with some value for the marketplace. Now, the Chardonnay is much more dear because there wasn't much area for the Chardonnay. They've been planting and bringing that along, but you're talking 10, 15 years before vineyards can really come into production. And so they're going to take everything pretty slow and keep it pretty small and keep it pretty manageable. And that's a good thing. They've got a lot of developments that have gone into the place. When we visit, we'll be seeing the new facility. And I think everyone will be very impressed as you taste through the lineup. This first wine is in the $30 range. Some of their wines are now bordering $150 a bottle. Alcohol in this first wine, I already checked, 13% is where we're at. So pretty restrained, especially for a New World, very, sunny type of a location, but not very hot there. So sugar accumulations are a little more, and acids are a little bit more like you see in other places like South Africa and maybe New Zealand. But this has got a uniqueness to it. And there's definitely some goals in mind and a hell of a lot of wisdom going into the product. Whole bunches, whole cluster. You can feel that in the mouth. There's definitely a little bit more complication. And I love the way this wine is sewed together. I do think the wine is very light and very pretty and tender. Not trying to be more than that, though. And it's all done in great balance and great finesse. Suckling gave this wine 93 points and talks about orange peel and pomegranate, dark strawberry, raspberry aromas, medium bodied with a solid core of fruit and fine tannins. And I like that description very much. Hope you enjoyed our first wine, kind of get us rolling here. If you've never seen a biodynamic farm, you don't have any tractors. It's all done by horse and plow and a lot of handwork. And here's our wine, the 2020 Bodega Chacra Barda. And like I said, we're down to the last few bottles, so we'll be rolling into the next vintage here within the next week, I believe. There's a little chat box. You're welcome to come on and ask some questions as we go through. And we're going to taste now with wine number 2. Where we go here is Altos Las Hormigas. And this is the winemaker from Antinori, who is involved in this great brand. And now there's a lot of foreign ideas that have been brought, with money to the marketplace. And so the foreign interests come in with the expertise, looking for land, their family, they've got kids and multiple generations to worry about. So they're looking for opportunities. And when you look at what's happened in Argentina economically, there was definitely a huge spike up in the beginning, and then some really tough things have been happening with the currency. And so there's some interesting things that are going on, with politics there. It seems like things have really gotten better with the new president since last year. And hopefully that is the case, because there's a lot of wonderful things, a lot of connectivity with our U.S. business and importing and exporting. And so Argentina is a very good partner, and a great place to visit. But we do hope for better economic times for them. For the current moment, the dollar is super strong, and that is bringing a lot of tourism. And because there is not a lot of hotel rooms, hotels are very expensive. Rental cars are really expensive, to the tune of like $300 to $400 a night. And people don't understand that when our dollar is so strong. How does that happen? But it is a reality, because there's just only so much supply and an incredible amount of demand. So that is the challenge of going to Argentina, is that infrastructure. But once we're there, we'll eat some amazing meals. and have some great value from the local environment. This wine that we're going to taste here now, the wine number 2, is a Malbec wine. So obviously we're getting some darker color and character. And we'll watch a little video here. And I hope that you get into the mood, our Argentine mood. There will be a little bit of Spanish this evening. And we will decipher and explain back if you have any questions after watching.
Bienvenidos a nuestro viñedo Jardín Altamira. Un jardín es el lugar donde nos podemos encontrar con la naturaleza y aprender de ella, cuidándola, mientras tanto nos recompensa con sus frutos. Plantamos este viñedo en el 2017, después de tantos años de investigación en el Valle de Uco, buscando el mejor sitio para nuestro propósito.
Quien nos visita en Jardín Altamira se encuentra con las montañas de inmediato. Los Andes están cerca, se sienten aún más cerca por el viento que fluye desde ellos y hacia ellos. El aire del Valle Uco es tan claro que uno siente que puede tocar las montañas. El estudio de Pedro Parra nos llevaba a trabajar con suelos calcáreos en el Valle Uco desde 2008 y a llevar a cabo una enología que maximice su carácter dentro del clima de la región. Eso nos trae hoy acá, Jardín Altamira, donde su suelo fue formado por una gran corriente de agua con mucho poder que arrastró rocas enormes hasta acá hace 11.500 años. Un gran número de cantos rodados blancos te dan la bienvenida en la entrada de la finca y luego te acompañan por todo el viñedo. Sacamos 6.000 toneladas de piedra del suelo solo para darle espacio a las raíces de la vid. Un esfuerzo titánico.
Mientras que los viñedos en Mendoza tienen forma cuadrada, aquí en Jardín Altamira mantienen su forma orgánica según el perfil del suelo, según las líneas subterráneas naturales. Pedro Parra estudió este lugar haciendo 50 calicatas y diseñó cada parcela para que nos den vinos con personalidad, la personalidad de su origen. Una vez que definimos el lugar, comenzamos a planificar la finca con un principio claro: mantener el equilibrio entre las plantas, los animales y los hongos. En Paraje Altamira la tierra es costosa, por eso los viticultores plantan cada centímetro. En nuestro caso, hemos decidido mantener el 40% de la flora nativa y el 60% restante plantar con Malbec, Bonarda y Semillón, viñedos, uvas tan tradicionales en Mendoza.
Estefi, te invito a que hagamos un poco de silencio y escuchemos la vida del viñedo.
La única música que necesita un viñedo es el canto de sus pájaros, decía Gianfranco Soldera. Y Alan York solía decir que un pequeño pedacito de terreno es único, por su ubicación, por sus suelos, por cómo corre el viento sobre él, cómo cae la lluvia y cómo se equilibra la vida en ese terreno. Por eso el agricultor tiene la tarea de reconocer y nutrir esa singularidad.
Un viñedo equilibrado necesita un ecosistema equilibrado para que lleguen un montón de especies en él. Por eso, somos orgánicos desde el comienzo. Usamos compost proveniente de nuestra cosecha y proveniente de nuestra poda para que el suelo tenga una mejor estructura. Agradecemos a nuestro fundador, a Beto Antonini, por esta clara visión. Un ecosistema con un viñedo en él. Las plantas se van a alimentar de los nutrientes provenientes de la actividad biológica del suelo y de los minerales de la matriz, haciendo que el vino tenga un sabor único y propio del lugar. El verdadero camino del terroir. Ahora la gran pregunta es, ¿cómo reflejamos este trabajo en los vinos? Vinificamos por separado cada parcela, para que cada tipo de suelo nos dé su máximo carácter. Este jardín son historias de cada pedacito de suelo. Los suelos más pedregosos darán vinos con más textura, más tensión, más mineralidad. Los que tienen un poco más de suelo darán vinos más suaves y jóvenes. Y todo esto es potenciado por el cultivo orgánico, en el cual se logra un equilibrio de la planta, el ecosistema, la biodiversidad y del suelo. Y se evita tener cualquier tipo de desvío de un factor externo que cambie el rumbo del suelo y el terreno.
Un gran terroir y un cultivo sustentado en la biodiversidad desde sus inicios hacen de este viñedo un lugar único y auténtico. Los vinos que se encuentran en la bodega muestran la fuerza que tiene la naturaleza aquí. Ha sido un largo viaje y el momento de compartir los vinos con ustedes está muy cerca. Estén atentos, sigan a las hormigas.
Good news, they provided some a read along there at the bottom. Hopefully that was you were able to see that. If you speak Spanish, fantastic for you. They're very passionate about their place, their qualities, and their styling. The bad news is that we have some video a little bit later today that's all in Spanish without any subtitles. So I will probably not make that video in its length, but provide that in a follow-up communication to everybody so you can watch it. But we'll talk through some of the video content on some of the other producers that we're going to be watching today. So when we're talking about Argentina earlier today, we were in the southern part of Argentina, in Patagonia. This is not quite the north, but north of Buenos Aires. We're in Mendoza. We're in elevation. We're above the cloud line. We're talking about vineyards that start about 3,000 feet in elevation. And that's where a lot of things started to click. When you have the Andes Mountains that soar into the sky like the tallest mountains you've ever seen in your life, providing year-round source of melted snow as the water for your vineyards. And you've got this incredible saturation of sunlight. You are able to make some things happen up here. And things grow well, lots of different crops. And but you know, there are some challenges. When it does rain, it hails. And so often in some of the pictures we're going to be seeing of the vineyards, you're going to see something that looks like a screen, and it is actually a hail protection system that they use extensively, because the hail is common enough that they will endure the cost of putting this netting system up across the entire vineyard. And that will at least save their crop. Again, this winery started by Antinori family. Of course, today the property is now run by an Argentine agronomist, but he's been there for quite a while. And the wines have been getting some big scores. This wine that we're tasting today is their budget wine. This wine sees really no time in wood. It's a very natural, small production they make. They get this wine out for a really soft price. I think there's wonderful composition here, considering it's organically grown and from their estate. It's got a really natural existence, and you know, the way I smell it, the way I taste it. I like the balance of it, but it's not trying to win you over with power. This is really something that I think I really appreciate. I like its lightness, its tenderness, and its styling. And I think you'll like the price. So as we go through and we see this beautiful production facility, very Tuscan inspired. And if you ever get a chance to taste some of their higher tier wines, they can make wines that border 100 points, big and extracted and monstrous. And we'll get to some of those throughout the later part of this program from other producers. This bottle is 91 points and $11.95. And I think it is a beautiful wine to have every day of the week as your house wine. It is a perfectly appropriate for anything coming off of the barbecue, some burgers, little lasagna. I think it's a really fun, nice little red wine to have on hand, likable, charming. And we have the 2018, which is an excellent vintage. And I think it will age for another couple of years. But this wine is ready to be drank. And I think I celebrate it at $12. It's one of my favorite wines in the store at that price point. Just a little commercial. Next week, we have some really fun things coming up. New from Napa Valley. I think that's next week. Let me just double check. That's August 7th. Is that next week? I think it is. Yes. So this is a little more expensive of a visit because we're going to taste several $100s worth of wine. If you wanted a bottle kit, it's $725 for a bottle kit. The flight kit is $80. And these are some real rock star wines. So going from Cakebread to My Camus to Maybach to Sullivan, Heidi Barrett's Amuse Bouche, and Francois Pichon, Amacero will finish the night from Howe Mountain. So really a great cross-section of wines from the Napa Valley. And then our Italian tasting on the 14th will focus on a lot of workhorse varieties and some of my favorite wines that I love to promote wines that are, if I could just make my store things between like $25 and $50, that's where I really find wines that I like to stand behind. This Manicore wine, we've seen it in the past, just got the 21 vintage in the house, drinking beautifully. Can't wait to taste it with you. Got our best-selling wine on the website right now is the Vermentino from Sardinia. I am flying through this wine, and it's rocket hot out there. This is the perfect wine for the summer. A really nice little Barbera d'Asti that's a great little value for $15. Tenuta Setaponte's Croniolo, $27. Celtimiano's Langhe Nebbiolo, about $34. And then a really fun Tarazi that is from a teeny little producer. So that's going to be on the 14th. That's our little Italian Zoom. Couple live events coming down. Just posted Palette Builder for the first time since 2019. We're going to do that at my friend's little restaurant in Santa Monica called Papille Gustative. And he does a wonderful little mezzi plate for everybody that comes along. And we'll taste a ton of wines. And we do this really fun little game out of wine tasting and building our palate references. If you want to become a better taster and want to practice, want to get started in figuring out how to taste wine and talk about it out loud, this is a program for you. If you want to taste some of the greatest wines ever made, come to my dinner called Domaine Romancanti and Friends at 71 Above, a Burgundy extravaganza. I have 4 seats remaining for our dinner in August. Wine number 3. I have visited Argentina on a couple of occasions, and once I was able to go to Cuvelier de los Andes. This is an extraordinary property. It's in the middle of a property called Clos de la Siete. It is it is an enormous property that was developed by Michel Rolland. Michel Rolland saw this property. It had to be sold as a 2,500, I'm sorry, is it 2,500 or 25,000? It's 2,500 acre property. It's giant. That's a big one. And so he got some different properties involved. Clos de la Siete is the 7, but in fact there are 9 Bordeaux producers that came in with him, and they have this walled vineyard estate. And the Cuvelier family, who make some great Bordeaux, decided to invest, and they got set up in their shop. So we'll watch just a couple minutes of this video, and then I'll take it down and talk you through the rest.
Bienvenidos a una bodega única en un lugar único. Nuestra bodega está situada en el Valle de Uco, a 1.000 metros de altitud sobre el nivel del mar. Una zona ideal para desarrollar una vitivinicultura cualitativa y pensada.
From the sky view, you can see the size of this property, and each of the investors have their own vineyard plots. You can see the houses built out there. They all farm their properties separately, and yet most of the fruit from each of the all the growths are pulled together as a cooperative. And that's where the Clos de la Siete wine comes from. That is kind of the ambassador wine of this property. It's a brilliant plan, and it's working very well. Although when the property was built, the expectation was that the Bordeaux folks would be able to come in and make great $30, $40, $50, $60, $100 wines from Argentina. And that is still a big challenge. All these properties make spectacular wines, and Baptiste received us, and we taste his great wine, and that sells for around $30 to $40, but it has all the work of the grape mark that they produce at their property in Bordeaux, that they sell for $200 US on many occasions. So it's a lot of work for them. They're still building the brand, but this is really a special gathering. And when they received us, they put us on horses, and we were able to ride horseback through the vineyard. And as I explained it back then, that we were literally, as they're walking through there, we were on horses, and the horses were just grabbing the grapevines with their teeth and eating as they were walking. They developed a really amazing set of multitasking skills. But the sunlight was so intense when we were there that I had jeans on, and sitting on the horse, they were being stretched pretty good. And the line down the side of my leg was sunburnt into my legs. I'm Welsh. I get sunburnt 5 minutes in the sun. But sitting on a horseback, I had an amazing experience there, and a sunburn I will never forget. We're still in Mendoza. We're in a little different part of Mendoza. This is what made Michel Roland get excited. He saw a lot of development in other areas like Lohan de Coyo, and he decided to buy this ranch that was a little bit outside of the normal developments. And there's been considerable expansion in many different directions, some looking for cooler places and some looking for higher altitude places. So kind of a contrast of ideas. And that's what's really flexing the muscle of creativity that's happening in Mendoza. Here is the facility. I will say that their property is a little bit more traditional winemaking and not as grandiose as some of the other properties that were developed, the homes and such. But they do have a family home on the property as well, and it is really beautifully, appointed. And of course, the view is spectacular. Now, the Cuvelier family own Chateau Louisville Poufray, which is just a benchmark producer. And so they brought their expertise here and bring this little gem together. The wine that we are tasting is the Colección. And this is kind of the idea is that they make their grand estate wine, and then they make the collection series. So kind of like in Bordeaux, they do the exact same thing. They have a first rated wine and then the second rated wine. And this would be kind of on the price scale, a lot less expensive than the Grand Reserve. This wine does carry a blended approach that represents what they've got in their property, and they were able to dictate, what grapes they wanted to plant and at what quantity levels. Of course, Malbec is the driver, but a lot of people have really grown their productions in grapes like Cabernet Franc and other Bordeaux varieties. So we'll continue to see that pendulum swing as to what works in Argentina. But this is a blended wine. It is not trying to be 100% Malbec. 16 Merlot, 16 Syrah, which is not common in Bordeaux, but is relevant to the Bordeaux history. When you go back in time in the 1700s, there was such a huge love of Syrah, 17, 1800.
Hermitage.
Are you okay? Someone said, "Oh my God." So I just wanted to know, was that about the wine? I hope so.
No, I said Hermitage. I knew what you were going to say.
Yeah, oh, you got it. Yeah, Hermitage. Hermitage was I thought you said, "Oh my God," but I think that's where it comes from. Hermitage means something like that. And Syrah is from Hermitage, and the Bordelais love Syrah so much that they poured a bottle of Hermitage wine into their Bordeaux and thus Hermitaged their Bordeaux wines. That was the kind of the advent of Syrah in my Cabernet and Cabernet in my Syrah. And so there was the idea, and a little bit of Merlot, a little Syrah, a little Petit Verdot, a little Cabernet Sauvignon, and that is the wine that's in our glass now, wine number 3. Love to hear your thoughts on this particular offering. We're up to $21, still a fraction of the price of where they intend to get these wines to over time. Some very good marks. Look at that color. You got super fantastic concentration of color. This is kind of what you expect from a better wine and a better, production level, quality production rather than value. And just a really deep and dense nose there with a lot of coffee influence. I get my coffee from a little place in downtown called Box Coffee. Love it. And they use a lot of wine descriptors in creating their wine or their coffee menu. Dave and Stephanie, I'm glad you love the smell of this wine. A little bit more of that roasted, sun-drenched, some really good qualities from, both sides of the occasion. So far today, we've had wines made by an Italian guy from Patagonia, an Italian family up in Argentina, and here a French family. And I believe this wine has a lot of Bordeaux similarities. I think in a blind tasting, you might not even think Argentina on the nose.
I would have said left bank.
Yeah, I did. I think so. I think something like a Bordeaux Superior type of a wine. It doesn't quite have the same structure, but it does have that kind of nose and character. Mouthfeel is pretty generous. See what else I want to talk about on this one. Any other questions or comments about it? Suckling 92. James is very invested in tasting in Argentina, and I think his reviews of Argentina are about as on point as anyone in the business. He has an entire business office set up in Argentina. He's there often, and he's got a team that tastes for him, with him. And so really he's omnipresent in Argentina. He tastes everyone, and that's important for the trade. Let's back out and see what's next in our lineup. I hope you enjoyed the Cuvelier effort. So far, a Pinot Noir, a wine that is a Malbec from wine number 2, a Bordeaux blend in number 3, and let's see what's next. And again, we stay with kind of a Bordeaux model going into wine number 4, but this time it's with the family Katana and Rothschild making number 4. This is a really unique wine, and let's take a look at our video. This is Dr. Laura Katana. She is actually a medical doctor who studied and schooled at Stanford, and she is running the family business.
The name Caro comes from the partnership between the Catena family and the Rothschild family. Ca is for Catena and Ro for Rothschild. The partnership started in the year 1999 when my father, Nicolas Catena Zapata, met Baron Eric de Rothschild. It's an assemblage of 2 varieties we love, Malbec and Cabernet Sauvignon. Well, our family's been making wine in Argentina, Malbec specifically, for over 100 years. And it was very exciting to team up with the owners of Chateau Lafite Rothschild, the Rothschild family, to make a wine based in Cabernet Sauvignon and Malbec. And I can't think of a better partner for Cabernet Sauvignon than the owners of Chateau Lafite.
We're in Mendoza, Argentina, at the foothills of the Andes Mountains. This is the vineyard of Bodegas Caro in Altamira, and I'm going to show you what it takes to make an elegant wine. In this vineyard, we have a century-old selection of Malbec vines from the Catena family. These grapes have small clusters, small berries, and naturally low yield. Altitude is very important. We are at over 3,000 feet of elevation, and the sunlight is quite high. Under these conditions, the grape contribute with intense color, soft mouthfeel that are just perfect for making age-worthy wines. Selecting the right side for elegance is very important for making an elegant wine. Look at the soil. It's full of stones, it's shallow, it's well drained. All these features are important to balance the growth of the vines and the ripeness of the fruit.
On the nose of my wine, I immediately got sent to the fact that this wine is a 2017. This wine is called Amancaya, and it is a little different wine than some of the others. In that at Caro, they make a couple of different blends. This is their Malbec Cabernet blend. It's almost like 50-50. And so it really takes on a little bit more Parisine from the Cabernet, because as Paul Hobbs, a very noted winemaker, said that, hey, with all of this growth and all of that leaf, you're going to have a hard time not having a lot of Parisines in your wines. And he goes, with Malbec, it will really respond better with this sunshine and this character. And he was kind of the person who spoke up and said, let's plant Malbec here. And in fact, it was the Catena family that hired him to do this work, and they wanted him to help them make Cabernet, and he convinced them to go a little harder on the Merlot, or I'm sorry, the Malbec direction. And like 20 million cases later, he's been right up until now. And now the market, with a lot of Malbec in the marketplace, is saying, what else can we do? And that's where we stand right now, on the shoulders of 25 years of huge growth in Argentine wine industry. Now, the Bodega Caro makes a couple of different wines. They also make their great wine, and it is called Caro. It is a little harder to get than it used to be. But back in the day, I was visiting a really fantastic steakhouse here in Los Angeles called Carlitos Gardel. And I was actually on an early date with my now wife in our dating cycle. And we went in there kind of open-minded, and the gentleman who runs the restaurant, his name is Maximilian, he brought us the wine list, and we started talking, and I looked through the list and I saw the Caro wine, and I'd heard about, hey, the Rothschilds went into Argentina. Let's see what they're doing. This was the 2002 vintage, and we were drinking it in approximately 2010. And so he brought the wine to the table, and we fell in love with this bottle of wine. So make a long story as short as I can here. The next day, I'm on the internet trying to find bottles of Caro 2002. There was one place you could buy it. I went online and I bought every bottle they had. The same time, my partner was on the phone trying to buy that case from the same person, and told me a story that night of how she was trying to buy this Caro and someone bought it as she was on the phone with them. And that, of course, was me. I got that case about 3 days later in the mail and surprised her with that case. And we opened a bottle of 2002 Caro up in almost every year until recently when we drank it all. So that's my little Caro love story. And part of the reason why this wine remains in my store, and part of the reason why we're drinking it tonight. So again, here we are talking about, they've been making Caro now for a while. What they give us a first vintage? I can't remember what they said, or if it's written on here, we'll maybe see it. But I feel like it was in the late 1990s. And so, the vine ages here are now in an optimal spot also, talking 30-plus-year-old vineyards. And some places have really old vine material, but this particular producer really started from scratch. This particular bottling is 91 points. The 2017 we have in stock is only a few bottles remaining, but this is a wine that I love to give a little bit of time to. I think we've actually had, we bought a lot of 2017, but we've had the 2020 Grand Vin in the house. That's gone. And a couple of other wines have come in from Caro, come in and moved through. The 17's still here. So let's see how it's evolved. Let's taste it tonight. And note that these wines do have some nice ageable characteristics, but I think this wine still shows a lot of like Parazine quality, a little of that vegetative green bell pepper in the nose, and a little bit of graphite. I think it's charming wine. $23.95. And like I said, we're down to just our last couple of bottles. So if you like that, snack that up. All of you got a discount code. You get 10% off of all the wines, whether they're the Argentine wines or bottles of champagne, whatever you want. Get 10% off on the store this evening. A couple of the wines have a little asterisk on them because they're very allocated, or there's just, I get 3 bottles a year because I bought 20 cases of other stuff. So I'm not going to let that get a discount, but those are very few. And if they do have that mark on there, it's probably the lowest price on the internet. That's what I'll tell you. As we've been doing our research on a lot of our wines, you can go on to Wine Searcher and see what's out there on any of these wines, and it's really hard to beat our prices. Lisa, I totally agree with you. It continues to evolve in the glass, and that's what a great wine should do. These wines kind of coming out of the little decanters, had a nice little time, but even in the glass, really go to another level. We have a team of crack, my team here in the office is really great, and they have got these jars down pretty well, and you might be experiencing how hard it is to open them. I told them they need to err on the side of being difficult to open rather than, oops, that wasn't tight enough and it leaks all over your wine bag. That's not fun. And it can still happen because they are plastic lids on the jars, but it is kind of our direction to make it a little difficult because we want those jars to make it to you as uninterrupted as possible. And we've had very good success. I do occasionally get a very disappointed person, and I hate having that happen. So we make sure those jars are nice and tight whenever we can. I hope you enjoyed Caro. We're going to move on to wine number 5. And I appreciate your comments, Lisa, and everyone else that's in the chat box. Steph and Dave, thank you so much. Kent, hope you're enjoying. And Julie, thank you. Let's go in and talk about Familia Zuccardi. Another very fantastic experience. I had one of my early trips to Argentina was going to Zuccardi. Now, Zuccardi, the background is, in fact, I'm going to talk about this as we play the video because this is entirely in Spanish. And the winemaker, Sebastian, is speaking. And he is very passionate. And I want you to see what is now the new Zuccardi facility. It is one of the most state-of-the-art winemaking facilities in the world. When I was there about 10 years ago, we met his sister, Julia Zuccardi. And the family has an extensive property, extensive and expansive. And they grow more than just grapes. They have other crops, and they have a huge team of farmers working for them. They keep their farmers fully employed all year long. They provide them with health insurance, education, and lots of things that really aren't afforded in Argentina or any developing country for that matter. The Zuccardis are thought of to be like royalty, and they have incredible vision. And in Spanish, he's talking about his father at this point, talking about his father saying to him as a child, we want you to dream big and think about what you want to become and where you want our projects to go. And that is a sign of amazing leadership. And the Zuccardis have maintained that kind of idealism throughout their business. Today, Sebastian's wines are getting tremendous scores. He has led the revolution in winemaking. He has taken most of the wines out of wood barrel into those larger, kind of taking winemaking back a bit to the way they used to make wine a long time ago, with larger wood for longer periods of time and slower elevations. And he's also moved most of the wine production into concrete. And that is a very Bordeaux thing, by the way. Bordeaux was making wine in concrete and has been since forever. Concrete is porous. Concrete allows for oxidation, and concrete doesn't mask some of the characteristics of the soil. As you look down, a lot of the Argentine producers are doing that pit type of example in their vineyard to show the layers of the soil. And there's literally strata that goes from, old soils to rock to more soil, different soils on top, and sand and clay and different evolutions of the planet's development. And that is what makes a vineyard interesting. the drainage, the soil types, the rock, the how layered it is, and how that vine can take that and turn it into information and turn it into something sustainable to grow in. The Zuccardi families are amazing farmers. The family's got a real pioneering sense about them. And the wine that we're tasting today, Jose Zuccardi, is part of their real passion project. This is named after Dad. Julie, you asked me a question. I'll get you that answer. But in different parts of Mendoza, you're going to have different types of rock. And we're going to see this in a minute. With our last wine, we're going to go from alluvial soil, which has been kind of decomposed rock that's been rounded and rounded and rounded and ground into alluvial soils, to colluvial soils, which have more like a block shape to them. And that's what they have. You can even see it at his feet. Where he's at in Mendoza, he's got rounded soils, rounded rock. And that means the stone was moved by probably glacier, probably, all of that water that's melting in the soil, and the rocks had to move quite a ways. And in other parts, it's more fractured and squared because it hasn't moved. And that's a really fascinating study. Again, the wine that we're tasting is the Jose Zuccardi Malbec. This is a special bottling of Malbec, a very specific selection, a high selection, calcareous soils from the Uco Valley are the notes here. It's 95% Malbec. Again, in Mendoza, we saw, here's a phenomenal look at the brand new state-of-the-art facility. They do maintain a second facility, their old farm, where a lot of their other products are made, but also some of their less expensive wines come from. They do make a number of different things, but at the high end, this is where the high end wines are made. I guess several generations now have come through. Alberto in 1950 and in 1990, Jose, and that's who this wine is named after. And now Sebastian in 2005 is the third generation. And I think, if I remember correctly, he's the first generation to go to winemaking school. And that is kind of the evolution that wine has gone through. And everything they do here at Zuccardi has, they care so much about their farming families that their farming practices have to be in line with that. So organic, sustainable, regenerative, these are all words that they believe in. I think the key word to pick up on in James Suckling's description of this wine is polish. There's definitely a refinement that a winemaking facility like that can take, some incredible fruit, high selection of the fruit, their best blocks, I think these are their highest altitude vines, things that grow with the least amount of vigor, the most less amount of quantity per hectare, and they have isolated these spots that make really bolder expressions. And that's what this Jose Zuccardi bottling is about. Being a wine buyer, I try to find wines that touch multiple different price points. And this one is at a higher price, but it's not astronomical. We're looking at $45 for a 94-point Malbec that really has some different type of qualities. And let's taste it together now. That stoniness is really penetrating. You can really smell that underneath all of these incredible, this thing is so dark. I mean, this is like, sometimes I take the glass and I lean it over on its side and I look through it. And if I can see through the wine, kind of speaks of, maybe its quality level or its concentration. I cannot see my hairy hand anything through this wine. This is black, saturated, dense, dark. I love the restraint on this wine, and I say that knowing that it's probably a higher in alcohol than some of the wines that we tasted today. But 14.5, I think everything's in balance here. Nothing's just like knock me down ripe. And this is a patient wine brand, because this wine is a 2017. It is current vintage. There might be some 18 that has arrived. But I bought this recently, and this is the problem with making great wine, I will say it that way, is that sometimes you can't release it in a hurry. When you make wines like this that are made in the great winemaking facility in that big wood, it's not getting a lot of oxygen in a hurry. It takes some time. And this wine is just starting to achieve like some advancement. I don't think it's moved an inch since I tasted it 6-8 months ago. I don't think that wine moved an inch since I opened it on Monday. It's got great saturation, but not an incredible amount of wood or vanilla. And this is a very Zuccardi experience. There's he does not want to bury the minerality. He does not want to bury it in layers of wood. So there's maybe a lack of hedonism for some, I will admit. I can appreciate how sometimes it's so nice to have a wine just kind of melt in your mouth like a chocolate bar. This one almost feels like you're left with a little stony pebble in your mouth. And that's okay for tonight's example. I think it's a beautiful wine, and really an achievement in winemaking that is coming from such a decorated family and a well-educated, very artistic family as well. And this is a brand to be aware of, Zuccardi. There are some affordable wines that compete in the marketplace, and they do things to make them competitive. But at this level with the Zuccardi wines, it's something to appreciate. And if you go to their website, you'll see what I'm talking about. Voted #1 best vineyards in the world in 2019. Best vineyards in the world #1 in 2020. Best vineyards in the world #1 in 2021. And they were retired because they won it 3 years in a row. They put them in 2022 in the Hall of Fame And we're able to give the #1 spot to someone else because this is what they do. This is their level of specialty and and stuff. And if you look at their historical page, you'll see the different pictures. There's Alberto Tito Zuccardi from 1963. And now Sebastian and his father Jose there in the picture. When you talk about the vineyards, you could see the different separation in Mendoza in a different way than some of our maps have been showing us. And they do have properties in different elevations, different soil types, and different sites. And so when you asked me earlier about the minerality, I do believe this particular wine comes from a strata of different sites. So not a single vineyard, but they do own a lot of property, and it covers most of the Mendoza appellation. Here's their one of their properties. Here's Pajare. And here's a soil map if you want to get into the soil. It looks like it's one from their single site. And I know that they have multiple sites. But you can see even within a single site, the strata of soils and the different depths of soil. Here's the really nice description of the wine that we're tasting. And it comes from Tupungato, Gualtallary, sorry, having a hard time spitting that out. Been drinking a little bit tonight. Gualtallary, Tupungato, Valle de Uco, Mendoza. And some great passionate words in there as well for your ingestion. And here are the different types of wines that they're making. They have different series, single vineyards. I'm sorry to pronounce this incorrectly. Paraji is the name of the wines, and they really focus on the different fossils and the different alluvial characteristics of their soil. Then you got the viticulturist wines, which I believe this wine is inside of the viticulturist wine. It's a blended wine. Then you got the village wines and the regional wines, series A or A. And so you have to really get kind of inside of the site and see the strata of different things that they're doing. You can go to Zuccardi.com, ZuccardiWines.com, and see everything. Lots of very artisanal bottlings coming out from Sebastian, showing off the different vineyards, etc. We have one more wine to go, and I'm running just a little bit long, so I apologize there. But I hope you're enjoying the effort. We will finish with wine number 6, a very special wine from Enemigo.
Hi, Luis and Alejandro. It's great to be with you guys in your vineyard.
I'm showing James Suckling video from jamessuckling.com. And I'm going to start it over because it wasn't supposed to start with me getting there. But these are the two partners in the brand, and James does a nice job of letting them kind of explain what they're doing.
Hi, Luis and Alejandro. It's great to be with you guys in your vineyard in Cepillo.
Cordón El Cepillo. That's
is the real name. But what I tasted the wines a few days ago, and I was so impressed with the quality and its a unique character. But I said, guys, we got to go out here and check it out. And the soils are very unique here. They're alluvial, but there's something sort of ancient about them.
Yeah. This is we are in the alluvial cone of Gran River, but it's the southern border that was covered with the ancient colluvial soil. So this is you find all square stones here in Cordón El Cepillo, and compared to Altamira, where all the stones are round and alluvial. So this is colluvial.
Colluvial, you see, you have more filo. That is very interesting for the wine. You feel the same sensation in the mouth. No? That's interesting.
The edges.
And so the geology and the aspect of this appellation, the vineyards, it's close to the mountains. It's you said it was south facing, so on this side of the world, cooler growing area. And what does that give you in the wines, in your opinion, like the texture?
My opinion is very interesting for the texture in the wine. That for me, the more important thing in the minerality sensation or texture is the real lineal auster. That's amazing wines. Many layers you feel in the end and change minute and minute. That's we see this in the last 10 years, Luis and Laura Cate. We planted many varietals. In the end, we have Chardonnay, Malbec, Cabernet Franc, and a little Pinot Noir. For understand, this is the perfect place for this.
Yeah, and cooler, as you said, southern exposition means cooler climate here in southern hemisphere, and Cordón El Cepillo is a very cool area.
And you said that sometimes people wanted to call this years ago Altamira, but it's distinctly different. So you're happy that now it has its own appellation.
Exactly.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
That is totally different. This is the south part of the cone. The north part is totally different. The soil and the temperature and everything. We're fighter for this.
Yeah, you see, it was important to have now 3 or 4 different appellations into the alluvial cone. You have in the northern part, in the west, Paraje Altamira, in the east, La Consulta, and then in the southern part of the cone, you have in the west, Cordón El Cepillo, in the east, Pampa El Cepillo. Everyone with different type of soils and different temperature.
And that's really key today with, let's say, new great wines of Argentina, particularly Mendoza, is that people are just drilling down and really emphasizing specific appellations and parcels, and which shows off these unique ecosystems for great vineyards, right?
Yes, and important to really to find these differences is to make the vines explore deep soil, like explore until 4 meters of depth is where you really explore all the geologic history of the place. You know, what happened in the last million of years is to encourage the vines to explore deeper and deeper soil.
And that is very interesting for the wine for this vineyard change a lot year. And the theory is the root is down for deep soil, and you know that's different materials, and the wine change too. We see here in Gualtallary too, both parts.
Yeah, they find like different, as you can see here, more stones, more rocks, then a pretty
Arenilla.
Yeah, una arena más gruesa, and then again these rocks with edges. So they find the different nutrients, different water holding capacity in the different layers, and makes the parcel unique then at the end.
Okay. Muchísimas gracias.
Sí. A ti.
Cool. So let's take a little look differently about Gualtallary. Is the singular appellation that we're in here. And this producer is very highly thought of and makes some really thought-provoking and score-chasing wines. Productions here are very small, but they definitely maybe fall a little bit closer to the Zuccardi mindset in the way that they're decorating their wines with the use of wood, which is fairly restrained. A lot of concrete and not trying to cover up the characteristics that they work so hard to farm. And this is definitely a pendulum that's moving across the wine industry, and it's happening in Argentina as well. It's happening here in California as the pendulum is swung so far out to the oaky side that it's swung back in the other way, and people aren't using as much wood in the way they're producing the wines. And in places like Bordeaux, they're maybe going the other direction and trying to make them a little riper, more rewarding to drink a little sooner because they need to find more customers in that direction. So just a very complicated type of a thought about wine and the way things are changing. It's not just one style anymore. And these guys have really been focused on their winemaking, their vineyards, and making some really supreme examples. This is 98 points by Robert Parker, 96 points by James Suckling, jamessuckling.com. And James is a good friend, and we have done a number of amazing things together. And as I said earlier, James is so omnipresent in Argentina. You'll find him there often. And he was the one interviewing them in the vineyard in that hole, which a lot of the producers have done. In fact, the last couple that we saw, there was an opportunity for them to show off the layers in their vineyards, and that's what they're doing. So this is a single vineyard approach, austere and shows restraint, kind of layering into what we were talking about. Great freshness, amazing balance. This particular vintage, which we have been fortunate to have the 2018, but 19 is very good. 2020 is very good. Alcohol. Is it 13.5? That's what it says. 13.5. That is like classic old Bordeaux. Cab Franc. We want to describe the nose, and you're looking at something so beautiful, so detailed. There's good color here, but obviously not black like some of the prior examples, but nice and dark and wonderful, probably very teeny yields, lots of skin, a little bit of juice, getting good color saturation. But we're not looking at something that's so thick and viscous that it loses its sense of balance and its sense of freshness. And I really think this wine is pretty interesting to put in a lineup of Cab Francs. If I had enough of this wine, we would include it in a future tasting that we have coming down the pipe of Cab Franc. I doubt it's going to make it there because I'm inside of my last 12 bottles of the 18. I do think I can get some 19 soon. But these wines are 99, 98, 100 points, and they make me buy so much of this other stuff to get these type of wines. So we'll have to see. But I've had a pretty nice position in the 2018, and it's disappearing quickly. So I can tell that the wine world is soaking this thing up, and people are experiencing these wines now, tasting them and saying, oh, I need to get some. The gentleman that you saw They've got a great reputation, and they definitely come at it with a little different approach. They wanted a cooler site. They're doing things in the vineyard to keep ripeness lower, some different trellising. This is just a walkway, but that's a pergola trellis there. This one is 85 Cab Franc and 15 Malbec. So while it is a Malbec, a little bit of blending can go on. Some years, a little bit of Cabernet, Sauvignon. Some years, maybe some other Bordeaux variety might enter into this wine. But this wine is made in honor of an old Pomerol style. And this has been very well received to the wine world. There is some wood on this wine, but really doesn't come off as oaky and heavy-handed. We're at the $110 a bottle range for this wine, and I think at $110-ish a bottle, let me just make sure I'm still 110. Yeah, I'm 110 still. I think I'm the lowest price in California. But there's so little of this wine out there. I can't even get any more if I wanted to. And we will take this price up very soon as I get or work to get the 2019 wine. We'll put the remaining bottles in our inventory at a slightly higher price point and start building that inventory of future vintages from like a bottle standpoint, because I don't have the financial strength to own 60 cases of anything like they do in London. We start with like 6 bottles and we build from there. Yeah, this wine will not only goes on forever in the glass, but it will probably age for the rest of our lives with that 13.5 alcohol and the way that this wine was made. This is definitely something that you could experience for 20 plus years, and will be really fun to see how it evolves. Cabernet Franc as a variety I've got, I think, 3 Cabernet Francs on the website from Argentina, and all of them are in that upper spectrum, 97, 98, 99 points. Paul Hobbs made one. We have a third. I don't even know if it's hit the website yet, but it's coming. These are exciting wines, and they get some pretty big scores. Oh, the Zuccardi family made a little Cab Franc in their more value area. I think it's Q. So they have and they have Q, and the Q wines are under $20. So if you like this wine, you might want to try the Zuccardi Cab Franc off our website, less than $20. And there's just a little bit of it. It's just something I wanted to accentuate, because not every day can you drink a $110 bottle. We want to have a nice selection of different price points. We enjoy producing these events, and we love getting our audience together to do these things. Every week we're here with Zoom into Wine, but I'd say about once every 2 months now, we're going to do this Heroes type of effort. August will be a little quiet for us, so we're going to take August off. We'll be back in October with a Heroes tasting. We'll do another one in December, and that's kind of the format. And here's our Cab Franc event out there in the future. You can see the Zuccardi in the background of this one, or Q. I think it is a Q. So there's the Cab Franc tasting on September 11th. Rhone Valley Treasures in August. Mega Wines of Bordeaux. We taste some great stuff on this occasion, but keeping it real. It's $50 a person. Can't go too high. Can't open the $1,000 bottles at that level, but some stuff I'm really proud of, and you can see the score line all the way across. Some great stuff. Let's see. We have the Italian event, which we talked about. Napa Valley, Argentina tonight. That's it. I hope you guys enjoyed our effort this evening, and I hope stick around and chat with you guys about any questions you have. But as we ran pretty long, I want to say goodnight and thank you very much, everybody.
Thank you, Ian.
Pleasure, Kent. Thank you, Julie.
For those who are Wine Spectator subscribers, this morning's Insider Report had a whole bunch of Argentinian new reviews, including from newer vintages of some of these producers. So check that out if you get a chance.
Very cool, Brian. Thank you.
Thanks, Ian.
Thank you, guys. Appreciate it very much. I hope you guys enjoyed. Guard, how'd that go for you guys?
That was wonderful, Ian. Thank you so much.
Cheers. Thank you. Awesome, both of you. Thank you so much. You guys were obviously studying those wines hard. I appreciate it.
Ian, I'm up here in Sonoma County, and Paul Hobbs is a local here. What did you say about his influence in Argentina? I missed that.
You would not have Argentina today without Paul Hobbs.
Okay.
He was hired by the Catana family to come down and help them create a Cabernet wine. Paul Hobbs was actually one of the first winemakers at Opus One, and he had already established a pretty huge reputation early in his youthful years, and was making wine in France, making wine in different parts of the world. His family owned an orchard as a child, so he grew up on a farm. And he went to UC Davis. He studied winemaking and really made some advancements. So he was kind of set up well to be kind of a regional expert. And he made himself available. Catana hired him to come down and consult. He got down there and took a look at what was growing, and he noticed the incredible quality of the Malbec. And he had made wine in southern Bordeaux, in south of France, in a place called Mataron, and made wines that were really hard to sell, and had some really incredible experience. So he knew great Malbec when he saw it, and and Tannat as well, and he's helped vineyards decide major financial decisions. He's brought in as a consultant to do that. So the Catana family give him a lot of credit. He then invested huge in Argentina and owns a brand called Los Cobos, which is some of the highest scoring wines in Argentina. And we always have a few of his Argentine wines on our website. Crocodillo is the current huge opportunity for you to try something from Paul Hobbs at a value. The Los Cobos wines are a little dear. They get up in the $200 to $300 retail range a little too quickly. And there's a lot of people that carry those.
Okay, cool. Yeah, I knew all his local stuff, but I had no idea he had his tendrils out that far. So cool, thanks.
Yeah, and I carry his New York State Riesling, his wine from Spain. He makes Gadeo in Spain. And he makes Armenian wine in Armenia. And he said the biggest problem with making wine in Armenia is it takes him 36 hours to get there. Thank you, Brian. Thank you all. You have a great night. Mariah, get some sleep. Talk to you later.
Hey, Ian.
Yeah.
It's Julie. Bill wants to ask you a question. Sorry,
hey, Julie and Bill.
Hey, Ian. How's it going?
Fantastic. My friends Julie and Bill. They run the LA County Fair. Well, that's not their title, but I'll tell you, they run the LA County Fair.
We run the wine bar. as the only people who have a little bit of knowledge.
That's right. That's great. And you guys keep it real.
Of course, all our wine knowledge comes from you, Ian.
Exactly.
You're too kind, too fun.
Quick question for you. With all these places appearing to be so remote, how would one venture out and do wine tasting at some of these places?
So like Argentina.
Yes.
Okay, so Argentina is really well set up to receive guests, but and you can get there and you can find places to stay that aren't, when I take 10, 12 people with me, we stay at the best places. And so those are pretty dear. But you can find little places that are great deals and very nice and get good reviews, but they probably don't have 10 rooms that like we need. And so we will go and we will stay at some really nice spots. And then before you go, just go to the websites of the wineries that you want to see, and you'll see that almost all the Argentine producers have very good ways to communicate with them through their websites to set up tasting appointments. They are kind of a place where you need to have a reservation because they need to expect you. Many of them have guard gates out in front where you pull up. You're going to check in at the guard gate, and they'll see that you're on a list to go in. They don't have kind of the, let me just go there and taste type of places necessarily, but in some cases they do. In some of the metro centers, some of them have tasting rooms, etc. But most of the places we're going are like large estates where we're like driving down the driveway of the house, and that type of experience, which they will allow you to come in and do that as well. Now, here's the warning to you. The biggest expense of going to Argentina is that hotel room and the rental car. Because there's just not a lot of that infrastructure there. Rental cars are renting in Argentina at a rate of between $300 and $400 per day per car. And that's US. And hotel rooms, like I said, on the nicer end, are over $1,000 in Mendoza. There just are not that many of them. So that's why trips end up costing a little bit more than you would like them to. But then you can go into a restaurant and have a steak dinner for $50 that includes a bottle of wine, by the way. And so that's the good news, as that your food and beverage and some of your day-to-day expenses aren't so bad, but the infrastructure stuff is quite expensive, and the flight is very expensive as well to get there.
You need a friend there.
Yeah.
Do they have agriturismo type places?
Absolutely. You can do a little research and find some nice little spots, and some of the wineries might have a couple of rooms, but again, nobody has like 10 rooms that we can use necessarily. We're going to go to Salta on this trip, and we're staying with the Hess family of California, Hess Winery. They bought a property up in Salta, and they make some of the best whites in Argentina. And they have a hotel that will hold. We got the whole hotel, by the way. We rented it a year in advance, 10 rooms. So those are some of the challenges. The other challenge is like getting around a little bit. So, we have to rent a fairly large bus. There's not a lot of that type of service infrastructure down there, and that can be a little pricey. But 2 or 4 people traveling by themselves, you can do that, and you can make a nice itinerary for yourself. And there's plenty of great restaurants to eat in. It's pretty developed in that regard. A lot of Americans have moved to Mendoza. There's a place called Vines of Mendoza that's quite beautiful. You could actually make your wine sitting in your home from California by hiring Vines of Mendoza to make a wine for you. If you're a customer, like custom crush client there, They have rooms that you could rent as well. That's a kind of an interesting way to do it. And there's more parts than just Mendoza to go and visit for winemaking. There's wine being made north and south all over Argentina. So pretty interesting, and a really hopefully a great long-term investment for some people, but it has been a little painful over the last 10 years for some of my friends. If you've been on a past Zoom with us, you may have met my friend Mike Barro, who owns a vineyard right next to Paul Hobbs Los Cabos, and he put his entire vineyard on the blockchain, on blockchain. So his basically his whole winery is financed by Bitcoin. So he's a really smart, technologically advanced guy. He was able to figure out how to do that, but he did not attach his winery's finances to the Argentine dollar just before it fell off a cliff. So good for him, and I think he's doing quite well. Well, Julie, Bill, thank you so much. Everyone else, have a great night. I see the Chapmans are still out there. Steph and Dave, we'll see you in Argentina. I know you're coming with me. Satsuko in Japan, thanks for joining me tonight. Julie Suarez, I hope you enjoyed. I'm sorry if I butchered any Spanish pronunciations. Little lack of sleep the last couple of days. And if you're a Dodger fan, you know why. We were just getting shellacked down in San Diego. Brenda, thanks for joining us tonight. I'm not sure if you've joined us before, but it was great to see you so focused and paying so much attention. Thanks for joining us. Have a great night. Take care, everybody. Bye.
Bye.